I can just read like all this manga, and I ended up pouring all this time into books with pictures and stuff that I kind of like dove off the deep end with the actual like reading.
And I think that, I know this is about YA, but I think
Yeah.
one of the main reason that people have diverted into pictures, I feel like there's a lot of stigma around people reading. Like, my personal opinion, when we were younger, at least like the millennial, maybe early Gen Z era,
Yeah.
like there was a lot of pressure on you to read and be literate and like make it. If you're on a sixth grade level, you should be reading like at an eighth grade level, and if you're at an eighth grade level, you should be reading at a 12th grade level. And I was definitely that kid. I absolutely read books way above my level because I love to read.
Were you
But there's like a lot of stigma there. Like, what if you're dyslexic, or what if you just have overall a comprehension issue and like you can't really, the words are too small, or whatever the case is. Manga and comics provide a wonderful alternative. You can still get all of the amazing stories, but now you get they're
Yeah, they're
pictures now.
illustrated, and that's and there's remember, and there's also a weird stigma about illustrations in books, like
Mhm.
graphic novels, things like graphic novels, comic books, manga, like or manhwa, like all of these things can be looked down upon because they have pictures. But the thing is that there's not any less consumption of words. There's not any less consumption of information or knowledge. I was gonna say there that stigma situation like applies on so many levels with kids. Like you, were you a GT kid, like gifted and talented? Did you get placed in like all the this like oh you're so special and smart classes?
Yeah, I was special and smart in everything but math.
Okay,
So,
yeah, same here. I
right,
was I was a
right.
gifted and talented kid, so like we can share that experience. You notice how like they segregated us, like they stuck us
Mm,
in this like all of you guys are in one class. We were pretty much in. We I don't know if you moved around a lot, but like my experience was I lived in a small town for most of my schooling, so
mm,
I was with these same gifted and talented kids all the way through lives. Like I met other kids that were just as smart as me, but because they didn't like end up in this bracket, like they
right.
didn't get that same thing. Do you think maybe because we got praised and like validated for like reading. There was always prizes, like you can go on field trips and different things like
Right.
that. Like, do you think all that praise drove us to read more during that time?
Um, I would say I did definitely have a different growing up. I did move around quite a bit when I was a kid. However, because I was always labeled as like gifted and hyper talented, every time I went into a classroom, I was always the smartest person or one of the smartest people in that classroom. Like,
Yeah.
people would ask me for my test scores, people try to cheat off my tests, all that good stuff. And for me, reading was more of an escapism thing. The person, like, I definitely think that when you put in the system where you have to be the best or you're always gifted, there is this enhanced pressure that you have to perform a certain way. And in books and in particularly fantasy, I was not asked. I mean, yeah, I got rewarded for it, but for me, it was just I get to a moment to escape into this fictional world where, there are dragons or there are large spiders and there are princesses. Actually, my mom confiscated books from me all the time because I would read books instead of doing like work or instead of doing schoolwork. I was a huge book nerd. So for me, it was definitely escapism.
I did get a bit of validation, right? Being young, black, and gifted and talented, right? Like
Right.
every time I was caught with a book in my hands, like there was just like, oh my God, he's just so well read.
Right.
And I mean, like the
Right.
name of
Look
the
at this little
show.
Negro go.
Look at this
Look at their mind.
this
Look at
little
this
nigga
little
is
knee.
smart as fuck. Like he can.
So articulate. Just
Oh my
I just
God.
love the way you talk. You really
Oh my
can't sense the hood in your voice at all. It's so
not at all.
crazy.
You're just not like the others. Like you're one of the good ones. And so
Absolutely.
I preyed upon that. Like I dove into a lot of reading and things like even my cousins would be like, yo, I always remember my cousin, he always had a real thick book on his hand and a couple of white girls. And I'd be like, I don't know if that's how I wanted you guys to look at me crazy like that. But uh
Mm.
it was like, was it ever like a cultural thing for you when it came to the reading situation? I mean, I understand escapism, absolutely, but like, did that ever come into play?
Oh yeah, definitely predominantly white institutions for it wasn't until I want to say maybe fifth, sixth grade when I finally went to my first like there is more than white people because for majority of my schooling, if I was a black kid, I was one of like one or 2
3 or 4.
or 3 or 4, and they were all sporadically spread throughout the grade. But my first time interacting with actual like black kids who are part of the culture, it was total culture shock. And like it was for me, it's that moment when you're looking at everybody like, what? You don't like to read? You don't just casually pick up books to read? What is wrong with all of you guys? Nah, we're all doing the Soldier Boy.
Exactly. Hey, look,
We're
I'm
all doing
paying
the
that.
crank
What are
that.
you talking about, bro? Like, and that's like, hey, look, because like the culture was what was so wild is the culture was I say different because they were separating us. Like they literally like they
Mhm.
only put like 2 or 3 of us in there. Like, and so you got to wonder, it's like, dang, I know I was actually smart, but like, is it affirmative action? Did I just roll the dice right? Like, did I talk to the right person? But
Oh yeah.
and like some of the kids didn't luck out like that, so their culture is different. It's not worse. And like going back, like I've the only growing up, I guess the only black friends that I had were my cousins. Like right, like I had like
Mm.
family and stuff like that. I would always see them and stuff like that. So I was able to participate there. But at school, it was a whole different thing. It was like, yo, you're white, and so
Yeah. Yeah, in my household, I was the oldest of all of my cousins.